Please welcome Andrius and Ingrida from Vinted, who are going to be talking about how to grow your users.
Hi, everyone. It's really nice to see that quite a lot of people came here. So, my name is Ingrida, and this is my colleague and dear friend, Andrius. We both are running product at Vinted and kind of making sure it's really growing. So for those who haven't heard about Vinted, just one sentence. Vinted is a social marketplace for girls to swap, sell, and buy clothing which they no longer wear. And the product was started in Lithuania like 5 years ago. Then it expanded to Germany. Then we opened France, Poland. And we have quite a good growth now in the United States. And a few weeks ago, we opened UK. So what you have here, this is how our growth looks right now. So it's kind of getting into the hockey stick shape. So I guess we're doing a pretty decent job on growing the product. And today we want to share our experience in doing that with you. And just to give you some tips what to focus on at the right moment of time and what kind of questions you should be asking yourself when you are deciding what to develop next.
Okay, let's talk about growth. And thanks for Ingrida for a beautiful intro here. When we think about growth at Vinted, we try to keep things very simple. And we look into growth as a combination of 3 different elements of user behavior. That are activation, how you convert the flow of people that pass through your product to actual active members of the service, retention, how you make sure that those members use your product continuously and stick to it, and virality, how they actually talk with other people who still don't use your product and attract them to use it. We think that all 3 elements are required and must-haves. However, we always try to focus on one at a time. So we know what we are changing and we focus on a set of metrics and not like as a whole different things that you can miss something. At the same time, we strive for the best combination and we try not to overstep in one of these 3 areas. Because when you pass the limit of conversion, for example, boost it as much as possible, you can find out that your attention starts dropping. And the members you convert that are not that valuable. So that's very important to remember. Let's take a look at 3 different scenarios of these 3 elements acting in reality. All 3 have one thing in common. They have good initial marketing push or publicity push. Let's say article on TechCrunch, Arctic Startup, Delphi, whatever. But then you cut it off and the hype ends. And what happens afterwards? If you have only good activation, your product is actually dead in 12 months. If you have good virality, you are in a better situation, so your hype cycle is amplified and you have more usage then. But then the end result is actually more or less the same. You are dead, it just takes longer. And the third scenario is what we are talking about today, the hockey stick growth. It only happens when you have all 3 elements combined. And to imagine and to understand it better, let's take a look into a real-life example of Twitter. And if you see Twitter, and if you see their situation back in 2007, we are having huge problems with retention. And, but they had lots of publicity, they had lots of people talking about their product already. They made a really fantastic launch with South by Southwest. They had lots of articles of TechCrunch already, but they were really struggling. But then Twitter found out that if a person starts using the service and follows more people, like let's say 10 people or more, she or he sticks to the service. And they encourage people to actually follow after they sign up. And that's when the hockey stick growth happened to them. Let's start talking about these 3 elements into detail, and Ingrida will start about activation.
So the activation, the first element of the growth. Activation is kind of corridor, a funnel, which you want to create, having a goal to convert your bypass traffic into actually active users of your product. So what you want to achieve here is to create a very smooth and quick process of getting your visitor to a must-have experience as fast as you can with the least amount of friction along the way. So the question which you should be asking yourself is not how could I create a very cool product which everyone would probably like, but how can I get my customer to achieve her goals on my product as quick as possible? So I don't know if there are many fans of Mario, but I love this example. If you remember, they have on the very first screen with a second jump, you get your power mushroom, which gives you a very good hint of what kind of cool stuff you will be able to do later in the game, leaving you really wanting to play more. So, yeah, so the funnel actually starts very early with your marketing message. Then you get to how to use the product if it's necessary. Then how to actually use the product and actually using the product. And there are a lot of very good examples which you can adopt to your product from other products which are already considered as working, such as your own power mushroom like free trial, for example, or a good landing page explaining what you can do next, and many, many more. But what I believe is that each product has to find their own unique way to have their own genuine onboarding process for their members. So here I have one short example how we kind of hacked registration, because registration is always a very friction point to get your user to achieve anything on your product. So the flow here is we allow member to come to the site, to browse a bit, and to find something she really likes. Then we allow her to even start the conversation with the seller. The trick here is that we ask her to write the email where she would like to get the answer from the seller. And probably she leaves the product in a while. But the thing is that when she gets the answer from the seller to her email, she has the link which she presses to read the answer. So here you have your email confirmation. So that's the second step of registration. And now you have her motivated because she has the item she likes. She has the answer from the seller. So now it's the best place probably to ask her to fill in a few more details of the registration. So this is how you get her registered with least amount of friction. Yeah, so you have her registered. So what's next? Now you would probably like to stay here on the product. So that would be retaining the customer.
Okay. Let's talk about retention. And retention is probably the hardest one to crack in a startup journey. And usually it's the most important one too. As if you solve retention, you at least have sustainable products usually, and virality is much easier afterwards. At Vinted, we recently discovered the hook model that actually helps us to understand the retention issues and possible solutions better and in a more structured way. And I want to share this with you today. The hook model consists of 4 different elements, and it's an infinite loop that you use to convert the possible member from initial external trigger to internal trigger, and that internal trigger is usually the habit in user's mind. So your aim as a product person or as a startup CEO is to put a habit in user's mind, and she'll use your product forever. Let's take a look at an example of Vinted running through the hook model. The first step in the hook model process is external trigger. You must put this trigger in a familiar environment for the user at the right time, and then the user has an actual ability to perform the action you want. It could be just a person telling about your product to other person, for example. Or, as shown in the slide here, it's just a Facebook ad you use to promote your app. So when the user actually clicks on the ad, you must have an action from here. So an action in this scenario is downloading and installing the app and opening it actually for the first time. When the user performs that specific action, we have to make sure that we reward here as much as possible. And in addition to rewarding here, we must ensure also that the reward is variable, so she expects it to be different every time. Because if it's predictable, you don't care after 2 or 3 times anymore. So when the member opens her app, she's presented by this beautiful infinite feed of dresses, shoes, and all the other really shiny, fantastic things. And she can just scroll, 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 and enjoy the list of items thereby, and etc. So she is happy already. What do we expect here to do next? We expect here to invest in the product. So that's the first step in the hook model. We expect here to put something there that will make her come back afterwards. In this example, it's just following other people in the product. And she can follow like 10 or 20 other persons or brands or any different followable objects in the Vinted. And this actually creates the other external triggers that bring back the user afterwards to the product. And here is the example of such an external trigger, which is a push notification about the new beautiful dress the person you follow have added to her clothes section at Vinted. And you run this loop infinitely until you actually reach the level that person has an internal trigger inside her brain. And that internal trigger could be a very simple example of just being bored right now and trying to think, what do I do? And that what do I do could be opening a Vinted app and just browsing and discovering new clothes and making me happy. The other trigger could be, I have nothing to wear today, so I go to Vinted, open the app, and I buy something. Or I don't have money, and I just open the Vinted app and try to sell something. And that's the thing that we are trying to achieve using the hook model and increasing retention at Vinted. Let's move on to virality.
So yeah, the last element of growth, virality. We are definitely not going to speak here about making funny videos on YouTube, because we definitely think that you cannot force virality. Virality is genuine desire to spread the word because you achieved some good goals on that product or you had real fun there. What you can do here is just find the right set of actions which member does until she's really happy and facilitate her the process of sharing. So here we have an example of what's not virality. This is our own sharing game. It's a classical example of share the link and get the prize. So what you get with this kind of virality is a lot of not qualitative registration, kind of short-term bump of traffic to your site, a lot of spam with your brand on it, and a lot of cheating. So you definitely don't want to go this path. A little bit better example of how to facilitate virality is from product Lyft. I don't know if you know. It's a product where anyone can become a taxi driver for a short period of time, and another member can use, let's say, Andrius taxi service, and I can get a lift from him. So they know that their customer is most happy right after the good ride and after he gives the 5-star rating for that ride. And this is a perfect place to ask him to share, right? Because he's happy at that moment. How can you find out the exact customer and the exact moment when she's happiest? We haven't went really long way with that on Vinted, but what we do already is we measure net promoter score of our customers, and we know that the group which we have to focus on is the successful first-time seller, because this is when she got her aha moment. I got the $50, you know, for the things which I don't wear anymore, and I thought I should throw it out. So we know we have to focus with that group to actually facilitate virality.
Hey Bombshells! So I know it's a little early for spring cleaning. I'm well aware of that. But me and my boyfriend are now living together in this amazing house, And to make the move easier, I cleaned out my Jurassic closet. I said goodbye to pieces that did not represent my current style. I said goodbye to pieces that I haven't worn in a year to a year and a half. And I even said goodbye to pieces that, you know, maybe I'll fit in you again one day, but we're gonna kill that sentiment and just toss it, because when our new hot bods do come knocking at the door, we're gonna take that sucker out for new clothes. Now we have a pile of awesome clothes, and we have a lot of different options on where we can take them to get some investment back on them, some return, if you will. Then we have Vinted. Yay, the whole point of the video. Vinted is an app and also a website, and I've heard about Poshmark and Threadflip, but I decided to download Vinted because hundreds of thousands of more people use it. And P.S. this is a personal review. I am not sponsored by Vinted. I'm just trying to help you guys get a little bit of money back. So on Vinted you can buy or you can sell online or on your phone.
Usually it was downloading for a while, so what I wanted to say before that video, that this is how actually word of mouth looks. This is in no way sponsored video. This is just a video blogger who was giving some tips and tricks for her fans how to get best of Vinted. It's kind of 15 minutes of tips and tricks how to do it. And word of mouth on Vinted is one of the strongest traffic drivers, actually. So this is exactly what you want to achieve, to just know when to push a bit further with virality. So we went through all elements of growth, and you now kind of know on what to focus on at the right moment of the time, and you know that you have to focus on one at a time and in a certain way. But there is one thing which we want to say. You cannot achieve really fast growth if you're working on your product in solitude, like for years or two, which we see happening again and again in a startup's environment. So we squeezed in this part because of that reason, and this is a very, very just quick hints how to achieve really quick shipping to get your results from the growth. So there is no such thing as perfect product, right? It's a never-ending process. So we offer just choose the minimum viable product, which means that cut all the details of your perfect imagined product without any mercy to just few ones which are main value proposition for your member. For example, Vinted actually started as a very single page with just ability to upload a picture and to write to the picture owner. That's it. And you know how far along then it goes. So the thing is, put online the minimum action and get into the never-ending process of iterations. Measure the results, check how it goes, learn from that, and move on based on the data which you get or feedback from direct members who use your product. Simple example. You want to change your kind of old school registration window, right? Because this process is not only for launching new product, but it's for any kind of stage of the product. So you want to launch your new registration, and you work on it for a while, like you change the design to a much better one, you change how many input fields you have, you change the placement of registration when you give it. Now it looks awesome, and you go online, and your conversion to registration drops. How do you know what to do next? You don't, actually. So what we do, we change one thing at one time. So let's say we change placement of the registration. We launched A/B test with 3 different versions for only placement, and we measure the result. We see which one works best, and only after that, scrap the ones which doesn't work and move on to the next change. So that's an invaluable method of working. I really recommend that.
Yeah, just as fast iteration is important, the same importance we take is on the metrics and the measurement part. And to have the measurement right, you have to have metrics right and the process right. When we talk about metrics, we aim at 3 A's principle, which are actionable metrics, accessible metrics, and auditable metrics. Let's focus on what's actionable. Let's say the total number of users you have, the registered, or the cumulative revenue you earned as a company over time. It just doesn't say a lot how your product performs. And it doesn't say a lot about the growth metrics and the growth elements we were talking before. So you have to focus on what's actionable and actually comparable over time. And an example of that is constantly looking on how many members you attracted last week and how many of them are actually coming back this week. And that's the retention rate. And when you compare it over time, like how did it look last week, how did it look the week before, etc., you say hello to cohort analysis. We don't have a lot of time to speak about it today, so I just want to put the name on the slide. But generally, it's splitting the users based on time or actions or any other like channel, for example, when you do marketing. And comparing that, the change of how these users react over time, and then adjusting and reviewing the results based on what actions did you make in the product, what changes, etc. It shows you how changes in the product change the numbers you have. And the other thing that Ingrida mentioned before is A/B testing. Splitting every big change into smaller pieces and understanding whether each of these pieces work. That's just an example of that you have to question a lot of things that seem to be unquestionable. And here's the button placement in our payment process. One on the left is based on Android design guidelines, for example. And the one on the right is more about gut feeling, experience, etc. So we're testing just this one change. And we have 11% increase in transactions, which is actually a lot when your business is in transactions. Let's wrap it up, and this is like a very short summary of what we wanted to tell you today. The first thing is you can look into growth not as a very complex thing, but as a simple combination of 3 different elements. You have to understand that all 3 are required, but you have to focus on one thing at a time. And in order to actually deliver the growth and deliver it fast, you have to iterate fast in development of your product, and you have to be data-driven and measure as much as possible. These are 3 books we use in our processes and in our work. Just like a recommendation to read them, and you can really dig deeper into the methods and models we presented today. This is the Lean Startup, Lean Analytics, and Hooked. Hooked is a very new book, released just 3 months ago, but it describes retention issues and the hook model in a very good manner.
And another really, really awesome method to actually learn is to meet up with the same people who are working with the same problems at that moment, right? So it's invaluable experience would be for us and for you, so we want to start meeting up and gathering up all people who are working on the product in Vilnius at least.
Yeah, so let's join the meetup group and let's meet probably the next week. I think the first round of drinks could be sponsored by Vinted, and we could really share the experience we have, and we would like to hear what product experience, product development experience the other people working in Vilnius or in Baltics have. Let's agree on a date there. And I'm not sure whether we have time for questions, but if you want to ask privately, here are our contact details, emails, and Twitter names.
I think we can cover at least one, no?
No.
You can get a T-shirt if you ask a question.
Yeah.
We will give you a T-shirt, and if you get the T-shirt, even if you don't like it, you can swap it in the hall. We have a swapping event there. No questions. All right. So thank you guys very much for your attention, and I hope we were useful for you.
Thank you.